What's up, everybody? This is Neandre, and you're live on the check-in with Black Menswear. And I'm excited to have my guy, good friend of mine. I've been able to track his growth and development as he's become Doc Iggy, right? His name is Matthew Igbinigie, but we know him as Doc Iggy. Matt, welcome to the check-in, brother.
Yo, bro, thank you so much for having me, man.
Let me call you Doctor. I can't just call you Matt anymore.
Yeah, no, you can't. You must address me as I am titled. Doctor. No, I'm kidding.
No, man. Well, Doc Iggy, as you're known widely on the web, brother. Firstly, congratulations to you for pretty much completing your journey to putting those letters behind your name. I want to go back to the beginning, bro. Why be a doctor? Like, you could have done a lot of different things, but why be a doctor?
Man, it's actually crazy. People always ask me this, and they're surprised when I tell them. I did not want to be a doctor growing up.
Okay.
Straight up, I wanted to be an engineer.
Okay.
I was a kid at home, always breaking apart all the toys, all the vacuum. They called me to fix the computer. And then it gets to a point where a lot of people in my family started to go into medicine. And they were like, hey, you know, I'm coming from a Nigerian American home. If y'all don't know, you know, you got three options. You can be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer.
Yep.
That's about it.
Yeah, that's it.
Those are your three options.
Yeah.
So my option, I mean, luckily, naturally, I was going to be an engineer. Growing up, a lot of my family went into medicine. And so I felt this pressure, but I think as a teenager, I was like, nah, I can pave my own way. I can pave my own way. So then took that dream into college. My freshman year, I wanted to be an engineer. I had trouble getting into college, surprisingly. Didn't get in accepted the first time, so I had to be on the wait list. I got in, the major was full. And so I started to scramble for majors. And at this time, this is where I realized, like, maybe I need to reconsider. Mm-hmm. But I still was like, okay, the only way I could do both if I were to consider medicine and engineering is if I did biomedical engineering. Okay. And so I went to my counselor after a first semester of getting all A's and only one B.
Come on now.
And I was really confident that I'd get in. And she started to, before she even opened my portfolio, she was like, you know, it's really hard to get into that major. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to do this. And I was, you know, I had plan A, B, C. She kept saying it was hard. I left the meeting without any conclusion on what I would major in. Mm-hmm. And I called my sisters, which was not a bad idea, but they were all biased. Everybody was in medicine. So they kind of started to counsel me on siphon between my hobbies and my passion. Mm-hmm. And that's when I started to realize, like, you know, medicine's kind of similar to engineering, right? But it's a little different. I did a summer program that was a pre-med summer program to really investigate if I thought medicine was the way. Yep. And when I did it, I shadowed and I had an epiphany that the body's just like a machine. Yeah. You got nerves that are like wires. You got energy stores. You got mechanics in your joints, just like the machines I had studied all my life. But the body has a soul. And that's something that is invaluable and inexchangeable from engineering, in my opinion. And I found that I enjoyed talking to people and getting to know people and kind of integrating that into my knowledge of science and people. And so that's when I decided that I'm not going to be an engineer. I'm going to be a doctor. So I was about my freshman year of college.
That's good. That's early enough, right?
Yeah.
Early enough to make that decision. And how important do you think it was for you to be where you are today, having siblings that were in the industry already, right? When we look at, especially from our community, there's this misconception that we can't go a lot of places because to see it is to believe it, right? Now you had siblings who were in the field that talked with you about that. How important do you think that is from your perspective, but then also from anyone's perspective? How important is it to have people around them that can see where they want to go or where they can go?
Absolutely. So I'm number 3 of 4 doctors in my family.
Okay.
There's 6 of us total. I'm number 3 in terms of doctors. The first doc, she struggled to get in. She struggled. She was the first person in my family to go to university. She was pre-med, but she had no one to talk. I mean, nobody's a doctor in my family. She's the first doctor ever in my family. Yeah. And so she did a lot of trial and error. Well, the second doctor, she's a lot smarter than me. She learned from all her mistakes. Yeah. And she got straight into medical school. The first doctor actually didn't even get into a medical school in the States. She had to go out of the States. Okay. And so the next one saw what her errors were and took all that up front. And so she got in, pretty smooth. She had her challenges and I learned from her. So I learned from both of them.
Right.
And I ended up just like taking on, like, because they were there, it just seemed more reasonable.
Yeah.
It didn't seem so far-fetched.
Yeah.
But for the first one, I saw her struggle, I saw her cry, I saw her stress, I saw her have to do all kinds of gymnastics just to get the information, just to get the opportunity she needed to get there.
Yeah.
And so I saw that pain in her that I didn't have to go through because I had them as templates.
Yeah. Man, kudos to your parents too. I'm sure they're proud of you all.
I hope so.
Yeah, right. Shoot, all this work I done done, they better be. But I really do value and appreciate that legacy that's there, because you said, I saw my first sister, then I saw my second sister, learn from there. I'm learning from both of them. Your little brother is behind you, correct? Yes, sir. He's in medical school right now, or where's he?
He's in residency.
He's in residency now. Yeah, so he's doctor too.
Yep.
But just being able to see that, though, I just love the value of that legacy within the family. Now, as you were, let's go back to your track through medical school, right? I know when I met you, I think you were starting your ortho program here in Dallas, and you were talking about, I'm the only Black doctor in this entire ortho program. Am I remember that correctly?
I was the youngest at the time, and I had two ahead of me, but they're on their way out. So it kind of felt that way sometimes.
And how difficult is that to navigate, right? And not to put the world on our shoulders when it comes to culture and representation and these kind of things, but I'm sure you saw a lot within that space that could have made or break some other people, but for you were focused and you were dedicated. How tough is it to go in those spaces where you're the only one there? And I'm sure there's some of that aura and energy around where people are like, what you doing in here? Yeah. I know you got that. Yeah. Right? How you overcome stuff like that?
So I have to rewind and just talk about the fact that growing up, I never really saw myself as an outlier in that way.
Yeah.
I knew I was different, but I never really allowed that to change what I thought about how far I could go, what I could do.
Yep.
So carried that all through undergrad, high school, undergrad. I went to Texas A&M. I'd be one of 300 people in the room, only Black male in the room.
Yeah.
So getting to medical school, similar story. As I got here, I did see a little shift because I went from being a medical student to a doctor, someone without really much authority or say, to someone who had some form of say and control of an environment. And I started to realize that the biases on us as Black people in those spaces does affect your experience more so, because unlike others who are given like maybe the benefit of the doubt or the assumption that they belong in a certain place or hold a certain level of authority, they don't have to go through the extra steps. So specific things that I went through were many times when I showed up, people assumed I was either transport, house staff, or the nurse.
Yeah.
And this actually came from not only patients, but some people who were employed there before they saw me more familiarly.
Right.
And so how do you navigate that? I think I fall back on the fact of what my parents always taught me, how you belong in any space. And if there's resistance, all you need to figure out is how to navigate around it, but not embody the fact that someone's resisting. You can overcome, just keep your mind on the fact that you belong everywhere. You can overcome everything. It's just a matter of how. You may not do it like the next person, but you just have to keep thinking about how you can navigate around it. That's very vague, but that's the general thing that I carry with me.
No, that makes sense though. If you're always in a mindset of I'm supposed to be here, then a lot of the stuff that comes with that, it comes around that, it kind of goes in one ear and out the other, because you that's the guiding principle. I'm supposed to be here. And we're in some instances where I'm sure you were frustrated, like, no, I'm the doctor. Y'all called me to come here to take care of this patient. I am the doctor. But your bigger purpose around that was, I'm supposed to be here anyway. you're who you are. Get out of the way. Like I'm still, I'm that doctor and having that, obviously having that pride that's in that too. Like, yeah, I'm the doctor.
Yeah.
Right.
And more than anything, I would say, just in terms of humanity, people are imperfect. There's people who hate, some people who are just ignorant.
Yeah.
And so I don't take it personal in every encounter. I use it as an opportunity to teach and maybe shed a different light that people never, saw. That's the only way I think you can make change over time is by not meeting it with resistance, but with grace.
Yeah.
And so in those moments where either a nurse thinks I'm transport or a patient thinks I'm, physical therapy or whatever, I always try to politely correct. Obviously walk with authority, but not arrogance, not trying to, step on people, because at the end of the day, it's about patient care. It's not about me. It's not about who I am and how I stand out and how I'm different or my experience necessarily. In that moment, it's about a patient. Yeah. But because the patient has that misunderstanding sometimes, it gets in the way of me taking care of them. Yeah. So just meeting it with grace usually helps out the situation.
That's really good. That's really good. And I've met some arrogant doctors, and not from the space of, I'm a black doctor. I just met some like, I'm the doctor. Yeah. Like, it's kind of like this, or like, don't ask me a stupid question because I'm the doctor, and you coming into it with grace. One of my good friends, his wife just left a network and opened her own practice, but it was because along those lines where she felt that there was so much of that around her that she didn't really get to develop relationships with patients. Yeah. And she was like, I work for this network, and it was 15 minutes in, 15 minutes out, 15 minutes in. She's like, how can I diagnose somebody? How can I really learn about what's going on in their body and their history? I look at a chart. From that, I'm supposed to go here to assess this in a 10 to 15 minute space versus doctors that care about patients or really understand. And I know doctors, I'm not trying to give doctors a bad rap, but you understand what I'm saying, right? Why, and just thinking about through that, and as you saw the different lanes of practices you go into, why did you go into ortho, right? And I know ortho because I watched a lot of Grey's Anatomy. Okay. So I understand, ortho is bones. Yes, sir. And they only call it an ortho somebody that broke something. That's and there's not a difference between a fracture and a break. It's the same thing. There's no difference. Yes, right? Sir. So, but for you, bro, like why did you go into orthopedic surgery when you could have gone any route, right? What about that stood out to you?
So the funny thing is, the first experience I had with orthopedics was in my own body. And it was actually when I broke my pinky toe. Oh, painful? Very painful. Okay. It's called a Jones fracture, but anyway, it's at the base of your pinky toe. It's common in hoopers, people that play basketball. Okay. So
you ball a little bit. Yeah, just wanted to put that out there.
Just got to put it out there. That was my second,
Okay,
option.
yeah. You could be a doctor on the NBA. Yeah.
While I was pursuing that, I was at the rec center one time, and I didn't get crossed. But I had a misstep and I fractured my pinky toe. Okay. And it took about almost a year to heal. Oh, wow. And through that process, I took anatomy physiology, and I learned about the phases of bone healing. And basically there's like an inflammatory phase, and then there's a phase where your body makes a bridge, which is like cartilage, which is softer. Yep. And then it replaces all that with bone. And so I remember the symptoms I had that correlated. I remember like the pain. Anytime I sneezed, it would hurt. And then it took a little bit more. And after a while, I'm stomping on it again. And I was taking this class at the same time, and I connected the two. So I felt one with orthopedics, one with musculoskeletal health. Yeah. And the second thing was that my dad actually had debilitating hip arthritis to the point where, he wouldn't even go out with the family for things. And me and my sister had to buy him a cane. I bought him a cane and like convinced him that, hey, you just got to walk with a little pimp lean and it's cool. But eventually the cane wasn't enough. So we convinced him to do surgery too. And he did surgery. And after that, he walked two of my sisters down the aisle at their weddings. Yeah. And his life completely changed. Yeah. So anytime I take care of somebody, I see him. And I want the outcome of my patient to be just like my dad. Yeah. And that's why I did orthopedics. I love that. Man, what? And there's this stigma, and I know and I'm gonna stick with our community, but there's stigma holistically about surgery, and there's this apprehension for it. Because this is one thing, like when we think about Black Menswear and what we want to do to change the narrative, right? So one thing that we know within our community, there are so many positive stories that within our community, but the media lets you hear about the negative ones. Yeah. And I know from the same perspective, there are so many
positive results that have come from surgery or operations. But then people are always like, well, nah, this is going to happen. Like, do you see that a lot with people that are resisting to having an operation done or a procedure when it's necessary, just based off of their environment or being from particular cultures and things?
Yeah, 100%. I think our history in this country, our history around the world, especially with medicine, is reasonable for people to have a suspicion when it comes to healthcare. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why it's so important for even people like myself or people that don't look like us to understand it so that we can be more sensitive to it. But in my space, for sure, I mean, you know, I'm in the operating room. I'm helping with the surgery. Yeah. I know which surgeries are rigorous, which ones are pretty easy. Yeah. I see the patients who come after certain surgeries and have a great experience and those who have a harder time recovering. And it's crazy when you see patients who have a relatively smaller problem that can be kind of relatively fixed quickly with a good outcome, still be so apprehensive to proceed. And I think the reality is that they just don't feel comfortable with the person that is offering it, or they don't feel like they've been educated adequately. That's one thing I noticed a lot of times where I'll be in the room with my boss, my attending. Mm-hmm. We'll be telling the patient about what we're about to do. The patient's like, let me talk to my daughter. Let me talk to so-and-so, so-and-so. And then my boss bounces out and I'm like wrapping up the talk and they start asking me all the questions. Yeah. They're like, hey, he said something, but can you clarify this for me? And it's really just some of it is just intimidation. Yeah. And so I think one, it's reasonable to ask questions. It's reasonable to be empowered about your own health. I think anyone that makes you feel bad for asking questions about doing a surgery or anything related to your health is not good, because as a doctor, we're teachers. Yeah. And so I think the biggest thing is taking ownership over your own care, asking questions until you get knowledge, and understanding that that the people that are doing this, they were trained to do this, and some of it, like the times have changed. Mm-hmm. You know, the media is going to bring out the worst of it, but the reality is most people, no matter what you look like, that go through this, Black, white, Hispanic, they have certain measurable, like expected outcomes. Yeah, we're not going to talk about disparities yet. That's another conversation. Oh, that's a deeper conversation. Maybe not another conversation, but we can talk about it later in this conversation. Yeah, but that does exist too, which we are studying. I'm studying actively. A lot of people that look like me are studying the differences in outcomes for patients that look different from different backgrounds. Yeah. And we're really trying to get into why. And so, do
you think, and I'm gonna stick my toe in that just a little bit. Go. Do you think some of that goes to overall stigmas for communities, right? Take it this way, right? Not being a doctor, you have a patient that comes into an office, or even just how offices greet people, right? Mm-hmm. I come in my t-shirt and shorts to come see a doctor or a doctor's office or anywhere, store, anything. And I'm greeted this type of way versus somebody else that comes in there that's the same clothing on as me, but they look different physically. Their race is different. Their gender might be different. And it's hey, what can I do for you today? I know you saw me standing here, right? Do you think some of that is that innate bias that goes into, I'm going to do a little bit more for this person because they look like me, versus I'm not going to do as much for this person because they going to, not to go extreme, they going to die anyway?
Yeah, I hear you. One, I can't speak for every physician. Yep. But
disclaimer.
Yeah, disclaimer, can't speak for everyone. Two, I think it's such a global subject that in medicine, it's something that's becoming more and more at the forefront of what we talk about. Mm-hmm. We're like trying to face it actively. Mm-hmm. Well, we're only facing it because we're behind. And so the reality is that we are kind of behind in some things. And I think with time, it will keep improving. But I can't speak for everyone. I know at my hospital, there's a county hospital, so we have a lot of minorities that come through, a lot of undocumented people. And so it's kind of customary. You kind of start to understand what the journey's like to even get to the hospital if you're coming across the border. Mm-hmm. Like what does a patient look like when they're dealing with domestic abuse or some form of drug addiction? Yeah. In some curated community, I wouldn't know that. Yeah. But I think in our community, we are familiar with it. So we're like, for one thing that I do, we take care of a lot of patients who speak Spanish. So I learned Spanish. Last time I took it was in high school.
Right.
But I took it upon myself to practice. I actually practice speaking in Spanish, introducing myself in Spanish, asking small questions in Spanish, because I noticed that it lets the guard down on some patients because they see that you're trying. Yeah. And each of us, have our own strengths and weaknesses, and we all try to take a part to relate to patients. But I think those are the things that lower that barrier. But can it be a problem? For sure. Yeah. Especially when in an environment where they're used to, it's a curated community. You kind of see the same thing all the time. Right. This is a nuisance. Right. Think about being a minority in a majority. You have to assimilate most of the time. Yeah. The majority is not going to assimilate to you. So as a minority patient, sometimes it's harder because, there are things about your experience, the way, what people think about you, whatever, that you sometimes have to do more work to communicate or translate so that you're understood. Yeah. That's just the nature of humans and society, I think.
And I'm going to go another step into one of the reasons why, from a community perspective, we do not so poorly, but our health is like, we have we have more, I'd say more issues. Yeah. But it also,
say it like it is, man.
So, it comes down to also, and this is the position where I'm at, and it's crazy. Like, I'm like diet, what we eat that puts us in positions that, it's crazy that I'm in a city, like I'm in a suburb of Dallas that's predominantly Black, but it's a very prominent area, but we don't have Whole Foods, right? I can't go and pick up these healthy options that cost $6 for a whole family meal and break that down, or $6 for a plate and break that down. I'm, well, let me go over here and I can get 17 different ways to fry the chicken, right? But I don't have 17 different salad options. Yeah. And those kind of things, and I know that putting that stuff in my body is going to have an outcome eventually, but it's what's convenient, right?
And it tastes good.
And it tastes delicious, right? Give me all the salt that comes on top of it. But like from that perspective too, is that a valid thing for us to address in our communities, what we eat, which will then help us with longevity and health?
100,000%. Yeah. Our health is mental, what we take in our bodies, and then our activity. And I think that's a huge part. I think for people who don't even exercise, you can lose probably more weight by what you eat than the activity. Yeah, because you don't have enough time to burn off the fat that you eat in a day. You don't have I don't have the exact math of like how much aerobic exercise you have to do per calorie of fat, but you don't have enough time in a day. So controlling that definitely makes a difference. And so in short, yes, the fact that we got food deserts in our communities 100% affect our outcomes. Yeah, thankfully some of us make out of those circles, and some of us kind of shake even our, it's ingrained in our culture in terms of what we eat. True. And what we cook. True. But I think that's a community thing, like you said. Obviously, it's not necessarily a race thing, because there's places that you call blue zones where people are living into 100 plus, which include Africa and, places where it's just Black communities. Yeah. And it's about what they eat. Yeah. They farm their own food, they cook, it's clean. And so we're actually looking into, there's a study that I was doing at the last hospital where we are looking at patients' outcomes from surgery as it relates to where they're from. Okay. Using zip code. Okay. And based off the zip code, you get different demographic data, which includes transportation, access to, grocery stores or clinics, ERs. And one of the things is also whether the place is a food desert. What's their score on terms of access to good food? Because obviously, if you have surgery, you have a wound, you need to heal. Yeah. Most people who have surgery require about 20% more nutrients to heal. Come on. Right. You need something good to heal. Right. So obviously, I'm just taking down that rabbit hole of, yes, in short, yes, it affects us. Yeah. And our health long term.
Yeah, man. These are just all things that make you say,
For
right.
sure, yeah. It's deeper. It's deep.
It's deep.
It's
really
not
is.
simple as, oh, I'm black.
Right.
Or, oh, I'm this or that. It's deep.
Yeah.
There's deep historical, all kinds of embedded roots that need to be considered in order for it to be addressed.
Oh, let me lighten this up just a little bit.
Please, man. I'm coming for that. Don't talk about me.
I appreciate you. I had a conversation with a gentleman. His name is Dr. Andre Churchwell.
Okay.
Dr. Andre Churchwell is a former president of the American Heart Association. He is, I want to say he's the director of DE&I for Vanderbilt University now. He's still a heart surgeon. But this brother is dapper. When I tell you, like, he takes to fashion like he takes to medicine. So he can tell me why the buttons button the way they button. He told me, I remember when I was in there, and he's based in Nashville. So we were at Nashville Flash Mob a couple weeks ago. So we got some time to sit down and talk with him. And he started telling me about, brogue shoes. And he said, the brogue shoe, the reason why the shoe has the dots on the front is because it was a military boot that they would wear when they were in the trenches. And so in the trenches, they put the dots in there so that way when they come out the trenches, the water pours out of their shoes and they can have drier socks. And I'm just here like, what? He's like, now we just use it. It's a fashion statement, right? So you see the shoes that have the wings on the front with all the dots in the front. You just look at it like, oh, that's a nice little accent to the shoe. But he was like, no, it was function. He's like, everything was either about sport or function back in the day that brings us to all of these things about attire that we have now. So not saying he was a little OD when it comes to fashion, because I loved it.
Yeah.
But I can understand it because he's a doctor. Yeah. Now, thinking about you, man, what's the thing that you what's the thing that you OD on? Just because you the engineer in you, right? What is it? What is your thing that you like basically want to know everything about? I know you also go everywhere with your content too. So I don't know if that's
you
a
already
thing.
Said it. I think it's the content.
Yeah.
I'm really meticulous.
Yeah.
Surgical with the content.
Yeah.
The edits.
Surgical with the content.
I try to be. I don't know why. It's natural. It's just, I'm always thinking about what can I do to get a different view? How can I edit this simple video to look magical? You know? How can I disappear and reappear in different ways? In ways that no one can replicate. Yeah. And so editing's my thing. The new thing is my car technology. So I just recently switched over to electronic vehicle.
Okay, come on now.
Yeah, now the only reason I did it is because I'm moving to Los Angeles and gas is hot.
It's dumb. Yeah.
And they are not paying me anymore. They are paying me now. Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So your price didn't change. So
yeah,
you gotta
but with that, EV is kind of on the edge.
For sure.
Yeah, I've done so many things to my car. Okay. Like I've never, lifted up a car, popped off all the wheels. I put caliper covers, spacers on it. I got different rims on it. My biggest project was putting an underglow on the car. Okay. Y'all know what that is? The neon. Yeah.
Did it yourself?
Did it myself, man.
Come on.
That thing could have destroyed my hands.
Yeah, right.
I was willing to risk it all. Ooh-wee. It took me longer than it'll take to do surgery. Yeah. It took me all day, sun up, sun down. Hey, but that thing clean now, though.
Understood.
So anyway, yeah.
No, I like that. I like that.
That's me.
That tech is you, man. But but you got to have balance to life, right? Because otherwise, you just be working yourself into an early grave. Right. And I loved your content, man. I remember when you first started having yourself in the video here, and then you have yourself in the video behind. I said, okay, come on, Doc Iggy.
Yes, sir.
Really showcasing the different perspectives of the editing. Now, I also remember there was a time in your journey as a doctor where you went ghost from social media, right? And now and we talk about that balance of work-life balance. How do you overcome? And this is also people that are in different industries where there are parameters put on you on what you can and cannot do on social media. Yeah.
So what was the question?
How do you overcome being able to tap into, well, I'm building my voice and I'm building my brand. Oh, yeah. And then where you work tells you, well, that's cool, but you can't do that right now.
Right. Number one, I say you got to respect the system. The system's always bigger than you calculate. Yeah. I think, just to clarify what I think you're talking about is in the middle of my residency experience, I started to go viral on social media during the pandemic, along with all the protests. And I felt like I had a voice, a place to speak about my experience as a Black man in medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And it obviously became well known. It got published in a big magazine, and it was on the table of my bosses, which I had no idea.
Yeah.
It was on the table of my bosses, and I was actually confronted at one point about my activity on social media.
Yeah.
And how it was predicting, how they were using that to predict my future success in my training.
Mm.
And so I started to take caution to that. And that's why you saw me go ghost.
Yeah.
Because I realized I had to prioritize
Mm-hmm.
what's more important, this career I've been working on for over 10 years or this social media thing I started doing 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's where I would say the way I navigated is understanding that the system is bigger than you expect.
Yeah.
You got to respect the system and learn the system. When
Yeah.
you learn the system, then you can properly navigate in the system. Then you can properly, if you have hobbies or interests, you can properly operate within the rules.
That's good.
Because one of my mentors always told me, I don't even know if I can say it right now, if we should cut it out, but your credentials matter more when you're of a certain background.
Yeah.
And when you are the smaller guy and you don't have you're not given the same benefits of the doubt, you have to be mindful of your credentials.
Yeah.
And so that is why I made that change and adjustment. And it took time for myself to learn about how to operate and navigate this world, which is medicine for me. And one of the big things you see in medicine is doctors always like posting things they shouldn't post, getting flagged for different things. During COVID, physicians were out and they were seen and they were losing their jobs because they were breaking COVID rules.
Mm-hmm.
And who knows how many other people were doing that, but because of the way they conducted themselves, it led to that. So in the same way, I took some time to learn the rules so that I could, properly navigate and build a social community that I thought was valuable.
That goes for anybody in any setting. Just understand the rules. Just like when you're in sports, right? You can't, well, nowadays in NBA, you can take as many steps as you want. Yeah. But, traditionally, if it's a travel, it's a travel. It's going to get called, right? If it's a foul, it's a foul. It's going to get called. Right. And the players within that, they whine about it on the court, but they whine about it so they can get the leniency of the ref. Sure. But they understand the rules and know what they can get within. And I think for a lot of people, especially like say when it comes to social media, like don't die on the sword for no reason. And now you're just out there.
Ineffective.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's several people along my journey that I saw that look like me lose their jobs in residency. Yeah. Several who were on social media prominent. And those are my warnings. Yeah. Just like how I had my sisters ahead of me in terms of what not to do to become a doctor. I learned like what not to do on social media so that I could keep my job, because ultimately like this is my testimony, my story. For sure. And that's why you got to prioritize, because what good am I with this whole platform on social media if I'm not practicing and showing that like I can also do these things to people that look like me. True. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. I want to ask you a question about the first time you were in surgery. Now, I don't know if it was a horror story or a what story, right? For you, the first time you were in surgery, what was that experience like? And when you left out of there, were you like, oh yeah, this is what I want to do? Or were you like, I don't know if I still want to go down this route? Man,
it was in medical school, my second year of medical school. There's a guy who was ahead of me, KJ. He's a family doc here, I think in Dallas now. He wanted to do orthopedics at the time. And he was scrubbed into a case with them. And I was joining as the junior medical student. And there's so much etiquette when it comes to the operating room. You think there's etiquette as a doctor, just, taking care of patients. Then there's etiquette when you get into the room where a patient's asleep and, you got different team members working silently, just doing their thing. And then you got the surgeon, head of the room. Yeah. You got the patient asleep. So the dynamic is completely different. It's a whole culture. It's my first time in the room. And in general, you just freeze up. you just stand there. You don't do anything. You don't look. You just like don't move unless told to. And I remember we were doing, I can't remember what the case was. We were working on someone's leg, but I just remember him as the student who was familiar with the environment and the culture. He stepped back. He's also African-American male. And he told me to step forward. So I stepped forward next to the surgeon operating. And the surgeon obviously is doing things, and your job is to assist.
Mm-hmm.
And the surgeon has the greatest authority to call for whatever he wants. And as the assistant, you try to think ahead for the surgeon, say, hey, he's going to need this, he's going to need this. But that takes a level of authority too.
Right.
And I remember him saying, hey, ask the scrub tech for irrigation. I was like, irrigation, please. Scrub tech gives it to me. I start irrigating. Okay, ask the scrub tech for another instrument. I asked for the instrument. He gave it to me. I'm like, okay. But I just remember like feeling like empowered in that moment.
Yeah.
And it felt like the gap of like how amazing and how far-fetched it was to be a surgeon was kind of closed.
Yeah.
And that was the first experience I had. But after that is the next thing is when they give you the tool. They give you the knife.
Yeah.
That is just a whole reset of everything. Because now you're directly affecting this patient's care.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I made an incision, it was nice. But man, the level of adrenaline, the fear, the thought that you may cut too deep, cut the wrong thing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That was overwhelming. But once you get past it, you're like, oh, this what y'all do?
Yeah.
It ain't that bad.
Yeah.
Until the next thing is now you open up someone's back and you're looking at someone's spinal cord. It's like, whoa, never seen that before.
Yeah.
One little touch, that person's paralyzed.
Right.
And so anyway, it's just kind of like a graded experience. You know, the first time is just being in the operating room. Next thing is scrubbing in. Next is like you're given the knife. Next you're seeing things you've never seen, and you're given this authority that you've never been given. And it makes a big difference. It's not like it's something, a video game, you mess up.
Right.
Retry.
Nah.
Ain't no redo.
Nah. No.
So, yeah.
You know, and you brought up video games here. I've heard that doctors are actually really good at video games. Do you know the validity of that, or young children that play video games actually end up being really good doctors because of their ability to navigate through different perspectives? I don't know if the story's been made or the research has been done, but I've heard it a couple of times, either through TikTok or Instagram, one of the two of them.
That's what they say.
That's what they say.
That's what they say. I mean, don't get me wrong. I played games when I was younger, but I haven't played video games in a long time.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to question if that's true.
Yeah.
Because, but on the flip side, in terms of AI, I think that as you translate the skills of video games into AI, makes a difference. Because even for example, anatomy, the way we learn anatomy is in the anatomy lab where you have cadavers and you cut them open.
Yeah.
But when you don't have those, you got these books, 2D cartoon or pictures of cadavers. But one newer technology and learning is 3D anatomy, where you can dive into the anatomy 3D. You can take the skin off, you can take the muscles off, all those things. And so I have definitely seen by using that can help me in surgery because I know what's underneath. Yeah. It's predictable. And I would say that's the only translation between video games. But other than that, I think video games is a waste of time. Sorry, y'all. I don't play video games no more. I'd rather make a video, fly my drone.
Right. Yeah.
Fix my car.
Yeah. No, that's good stuff, man. Well, I want to ask you this question, and I've got a little segment here to close this out. But one question I do want to ask you, for any young person out there that wants to go into medicine, what advice would you give them today?
I would say start early. If you have any inkling of a passion or interest, start early. And what that means is if you think you want to be a doctor, you got a computer, Google it. What is it like to be a doctor? Watch a YouTube video. If you think that confirms your passion, find a mentor, somebody ahead of you in that space. I got connected to the surgeons that I work with and trained under through one of the deacons at my church. He operated on his wife's foot. And that's how I got through the door. And some of this is by chance, but a lot of it is by seeking. And so one, start early, seek mentorship. And then the last thing is, like, when you find out and you realize you want to do this, you know there's going to be different check marks, checkpoints that you have to go through. There's exams you got to take. There's grades you got to get. You're not special. You got to do it.
Yeah.
You got to do it.
Yeah.
And the best way to ensure your success is to start early. Start studying. Once you know that exam's coming, start studying.
Yeah.
And so one practical thing that I did was my freshman year of college. Obviously, I had 2 sisters. There was kind of like a cheat code. I knew it was coming. Freshman year of college, I bought my books, my study material.
Yeah.
And I started to study the study material for the exam along with the courses I was taking. So if it's for biology, I take my book with me to the biology class. I'm checking, are they talking about the same things in this book or not? And now I can better calculate how much I need to study more or whether I'm right on par.
Yeah.
And that saved a lot of time and a lot of energy. So
that's good.
That's what I would say.
Man, I love that, man. And it's the thing that I really see that it's all practical. It's not a I did this better than anybody. It's just not. It's the practicality behind understanding the process, trusting the process, enduring the process. But just being extremely practical about things. So that's all you got to do to be a doctor, just be practical?
I'm not an alien. I'm a human. That's it.
So I got a segment here I want to close us out with, right? And this segment here is sponsored by the Black Men's Summit in Atlanta this year. Black Menswear, Black Wealth Renaissance, Surf Forth events, the Black Men Camp. We come together to champion. This year we're celebrating brotherhood, right? So for the Black Men Summit this year in Atlanta, September 20th to 21st, we'd love to see everybody there. This little segment here is called This or That. Okay. All right. Real easy. Don't think too hard about it. Coffee or tea?
Tea.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset, golden hour.
Beach vacation or mountain retreat?
We on the beach.
Reading a book or watching a movie?
We watching a movie because I don't like reading.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs because they listen. Cats don't listen.
They don't, huh?
Come on now.
City life or country living?
City life for now.
Summers or winters?
Summer. I'm an African boy.
So yeah, give it a heat. Sweet or savory?
Savory.
Okay. Work from home or work from an office?
Work from home.
Concerts or sports events?
Concert. Sing along.
Sing along?
Yes.
Sing along, yeah. Get you out there.
Get a little dance.
What's the best concert you ever been to? That was just an add-on there. That wasn't even part of my list. I hit the 10 questions.
Well, I'm gonna be honest. Well, obviously I have to be honest. But anyway, first and best concert I've ever been to was actually a Hillsong worship concert.
Come on, Hillsong. Movement. And the entire, I can already see it. I can already see it.
I never seen
audience. Oh, yeah.
I haven't seen that before.
Yeah.
It's just energy.
Yeah.
And it's not like the corny songs you sing in your room or in the shower by yourself. You like singing it along with everybody into it.
Yeah.
So that was the first and best one I've been to.
Similarly, I went to Chandler Moore Experience.
Ooh.
This was at SoFi Stadium in LA like 3 years ago, randomly. It was really random because Rock and Jermaine were going, my content team. Oh yeah. So they were going, they're like, hey, we're going to this concert. It's, you want to go? And I was like, cool, let's go. And I go there, and that was my first time experiencing Chandler Moore. Oh. And like I say, just the wave of spirituality that went through. And I mean, everybody was locked in. I was like, Lord, I didn't know I was coming. Bro. I'm sorry. I didn't know where I was going. Man. But it was an amazing experience. So for your best experience to be Hillsong, I definitely understand.
It's funny. I went to Dallas Socials where he used to lead worship, and I'm like, whatever, Dallas Social, everybody want to be social media, what I mean? Like, it's flashy, it's trendy, whatever. I walk in there, Chandler's, doing his thing. And man, when I tell you, I never felt a spirit of like Pentecostal. Yeah. Like, the Holy Spirit is with you in this room.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I was just like you, bro.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Lord, I'm sorry. Yeah.
You're so good to me. Man, the energy, man. Yeah. It gets to a point where he's not even singing. Yeah. And just instruments playing. And you just, anyway.
You feel it. Well, guys, we're here for another episode of the Check-In with Black Menswear. I've had the pleasure of sitting here with my brother, Matthew Igbinigie, Doc Iggy. Doc, tell them where to follow you, man, how to follow, continue following your journey.
Oh, absolutely. My name is Matthew Igbinigie. I go by Dr. Iggy online. My main platform is Instagram right now, which is doc.iggy, and TikTok as well, doc.iggy. And lastly, I do have an YouTube page that I just started to maybe give more long-form content, more conversational content, which is Doc Iggy 116.
Well, we're here on the Check In with Black Menswear. We'll tap in with y'all next time. And don't be stingy with the content, with the information. If you've heard something that Doc Iggy has said that helped to change your mindset, more so empower you, don't be stingy with the empowerment. Share it with somebody else because they need to hear the words this brother has spoken as well, man. Y'all be good out there. Stay safe and empower your brother next to you.